Welcome back to part 2 of Wes Spencer's conversation with Sunny on Sunny's Silver Linings. Wes is an angel investor, advisor, and expert on all things cybersecurity. Today, Sunny and Wes chat about immediate talent search strategies, retaining cybersecurity experts, and more. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Sunny Kayla.
We did this at ConnectWise. So I'm from Kentucky. I spent about 20 plus years in Kentucky. And, one thing about Kentucky, it's very rural, and the eastern side of Kentucky is very coal focused. And what do we know what's happened with coal in the past, 20 years of evolution? It's fallen apart. And so you literally have some of these old coal towns in Kentucky that are destitute, that are third world countries.
Mm-hmm.
They're really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the community colleges there have said, well, we recognize this. And so we're going to build a talent pipeline with developers like, things like Python and Django and React and REST and this modern stuff and cybersecurity. And so at ConnectWise, we partnered with Eastern Kentucky University. It's a community college. Eastern Kentucky Community College that's out there. And we brought on two of their people as security analysts. And I can't tell you, they literally were in tears with us. They're like, you've changed our life. The salary that you're paying, we've never had anything like this before. This is a game changer. You tell us what you want us to do, and we will move mountains to make it happen. And you talk about that feeling of like, we're changing a community at the same time. And so I cast that vision to everyone watching today to say, go build the pipeline. You won't see immediate results, but you will over 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, begin to see a pipeline of people saying, I love what you're doing and I want in on that. And I would love to have access into your MSP and work for you because of what you're doing. And I think that's the key to short circuiting the gap, the talent gap that's out there, is get involved in where the talent is being created and educated.
Yeah, no, that's great. So my follow-up question there is, companies like ConnectWise to any big company out there, like mid-market and Fortune 5,000 companies, they have a lot of resources to invest into cultivating that talent from high school onwards. MSPs are small businesses, 15, 20 people companies on an average. What can they do, which is more like having limited resources for like 3 years from now type of talent? So how can they do this?
I think so. I'm going to steal a term from my good friend David Powell. He always tells me, he says, Wes, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And I would encourage MSPs to say, remember who you're talking to. You're talking to college students and high school students that have never actually had the IT job before. And you may feel like you're small. You may feel like you have no resources, but you offering to the professor or the teacher, can I just come in and can I share for 30 to 45 minutes of what managed IT is like and some of the systems that we're building and the cool things that we're doing? Their heads are going to be like, this is the coolest stuff ever. That's awesome. So never forget that you may not have the ability to put $1 million into a budget and an innovation center and all these cool things that big companies do, but you can just walk into a class and talk to them and teach them about what your world is like and how exciting it is and what you're building. And they've never done it before. And that might be the impetus to start things off. And then, an internship program where you coach them up and you recognize I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time to get them going, but no experience required, because the hardest part is how do I get past that experience limit? Because every cybersecurity job that's out there requires experience. Yeah. I'm going to offer you the ability to get into this with no experience. We're going to train you up. So those are two things I would point to, is just remember you have more resources than you think you do because you're already steps ahead of them in their career and they want in on that.
Yeah. Now, how about people? So, this talent will help down the line. And so MSPs do need talent right now as well for the right now plan. So what's your advice to them in terms of their talent search strategies?
Yeah. Well, one thing I don't want to neglect is also your in-house talent. There's a lot of ways to build that. And what we're seeing across the board among like security educators is a lot of like free resources that are out there that you can even train your own team. So for example, one of my friends, his name is John Strand. He is the CEO of Black Hills Information Security, which is one of the largest, most reputable cybersecurity firms that's out there. Mm-hmm. And John has his SOC training class for Security Operations Center training folks. Mm-hmm. It's about it can be as high as $4,000 per class. But it can also be as low as $0. John has a no questions asked, pay what you can plan. And so there is nobody that could be listening to this podcast today saying, I can't afford it. My MSP won't pay for it. Yes, they will, because it's $0. If you go to John and say, I have no money, he's going to say, get in on this because it's better for all of us. You got $100, I'll take it. You can pay all, great. Right. And so I do think that's a big thing with talent pipeline as well, is like, don't forget your internal folks, build them up, give them the freedom and resources and time to invest in themselves so that they can grow into those things. Because I have talked to many people at like IT Nation and other conferences, even IT by Design as well, where there's hunger among channel among partner base that say, I want to learn security. It's so cool. How do I get into it? So build it, start learning, encourage your employees to grow into those things, because you may find that some of those people that come from, just an IT help desk analyst become your most important, solid cybersecurity personnel that you've ever found. So never forget that as well, and seize on the free resources that are out there.
And is there any advice, any formula, anything that you have learned that you can share with our MSP friends where retaining talent, right? So that you're always going to lose some to New York Stock Exchange or someone else, Google, to any big company. But is there anything that they can do? So there's a lot of investment goes into training people, and at least kind of having them part of your vision for 2-3 years. You understand not everyone is going to work for the entire life with you, but at least like 2-3 years. So is there anything that they can do to retain people or increase their chances of retaining cybersecurity experts?
There's a lot of things, and I'll give a bunch of anecdotes that would hopefully point to some things that I think are more systemic that you can follow. So at Perch, we struggle with the same problem at Perch Security. Our security operations team, by the time ConnectWise acquired us, was getting close to 20. And so retaining talent like that they're doing some elite things, but we know we're not paying quite what, a Bank of America might be able to pay, is a trick. And yet we only lost, I think, 1 or 2 security analysts over that entire 5-year time. So I learned some lessons on how to keep them. And I want to share some of those things with you now. So one of those things I think is important is recognizing a lot of security folks, especially technical folks, they're actually not after the top dollar. Like if you offer them more money, sure, they're listening and they're not going to turn down more money, right? Yeah. But that's almost, in my experience, almost never the primary driver of why they leave. It's usually the ability to go do bigger, more interesting things they've never done before. So how do you counter that? Well, one thing we did at Perch is we intentionally gave our analysts tons of free time to go explore other projects that they could go work on their own. Some of those were nonprofits. Some of those were like research projects that they were doing for Perch. And we always encourage, like, go do that. That is awesome. For sure. Go seize on that. That sounds like fun. We want you to go explore those things. And I have found when you like help satisfy that tenacious desire they have to like really dive into something cool and unique and new and explore something they're passionate about, they return that back to you and saying, why would I leave a company like that? It's so awesome. I love this. And I'll point to Jason Slagle, for example. He's a friend of mine. He's an MSP owner, and he's very well known for doing these kinds of things. He's very well known for spending a lot of his time helping others, building very interesting and cool things, partnering with vendors, partnering with other MSPs, and giving his time back. Why would he want to go do anything else? Because that really is what recharges him as a person that loves to give back. The other thing I think is really important is how do you build a great team with camaraderie and build a culture inside of it? Yeah. And so I remember doing some things that really hurt us in the early days, but it paid off in dividends. I remember, for example, Patrick, our SOC director, called me one time. He's like, hey, Wes, they're in Houston. He said, hey, Wes, he goes, I thought of something. I'm like, okay, what? He goes, I know this is going to be expensive, but he's like, can I take the entire SOC to the World Series, to game like 4, whatever it was? It's in Houston. And I'm like, we don't have money for that. But then immediately, as soon as I said it, I'm like, but how much will that pay off? What kind of ROI would that be with like for them to have tons of funding? And so I'm like, you know what? Crunch me the numbers, come back and tell me what it was. There's a few $1,000s. And I thought, you know what? I can't send one of them off to training for that price. I'm like, yes, tell them they can all have 2 beers on the company. We'll pay for their ability to go in. Anything else is on them. And so he sent me back so many pictures, and they had the greatest time. They're in standing only seats, but he's like, man, they had so much fun. Like they loved it. Thank you for sending. And it taught me that sometimes doing things for your team to be team building doesn't always have to be like, going to a World Series event, but like building like investing in them is important. There's an old LinkedIn repost I see almost every few months, and it's the CFO and the CEO talking. And the CFO says, what if we invest in our employees and then they leave? And the CEO returns back and says, what if we don't invest in them and they stay? And I'm like, that is so true. So let's recognize, let's build great culture. Let's give them the freedom to explore and build things. And then recognize that when a better opportunity comes for their family to go make more money, if they want to do that, we understand it. But that's why we build the pipeline. So those are two big things I would point to that I think are really helpful in building and retaining and keeping security talent.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. Well-trained people are always going to help the business and keeping your culture strong. So, and doing everything that we can to make sure that they're getting all the growth that they want within the company, that they don't need to look for their passion and their overall career growth alignment somewhere else. So thank you for sharing that. Now, cybersecurity insurance is a kind of like, it's a big thing. Every business should have it, but the cost of the insurance has been going up. So can you talk to us a little bit about the whole landscape here, and what is your advice for MSPs in terms of their insurance?
Yeah, great question. And I think it's one of the most pertinent things that we're going to see in 2022. I think it's going to become the year of like cyber insurance setting new normals. And I actually think, again, I'm an optimist. I'm not a natural optimist, by the way. I've learned to become one, right? Like the weird optimist CISO. But I think there's so much benefit in this. So let's take one quick step back and understand what happened. So in the olden days, Sunny, we had all of these cyber insurance carriers that were offering insurance for cybersecurity without really recognizing what they were doing. It was almost like, I'd almost explain it like Oprah, right? Like you get a car, you get insurance, you get insurance, you get insurance. And it's like if you had three things, if you had a business name, you had a personal name, and you could fog a mirror, meaning that you're alive, you got insurance. And we know it was a little bit more than that, but it was cheap one pagers. Do you have antivirus? Do you have somebody that knows about security in your organization? Very simple questions that really didn't really describe good security and couldn't even measure good security. And so what do you see as a natural result to this? As I mentioned in the beginning of our interview, like the progression of bad guys understanding MSPs are extremely lucrative. We saw insurance costs in 2020, and I'm waiting to see the 2021 full data, but I'm sure it's going to say the same thing, go to loss ratios of anywhere from 60 to 100%. So loss ratios are when an insurance carrier comes into the market and they establish a certain amount of like funds to be able to cover and carry and issue insurance. This is highly regulated stuff. They need to see to be profitable about 20% loss ratios. Like that's where like auto ought to be and home and life and all these other things. And yet cybersecurity is at 80 to 100%. Staggering to me, mind blowing to me. And so it's a natural knee jerk when insurance says, we're not doing this anymore. We're just done. And if you're an MSP, you're hard out. We're just not dealing with MSPs at all anymore. And then you see others, and I've had conversation after conversation with MSPs where they'll say, Wes, I still got renewed, but now I'm getting charged 4 times what I got charged last year, 4 times. And I had 0 claims, nothing. And I'm like, yes, this is the natural reaction to what's happening with cyber insurance, just giving it out for basically very little, and then having high loss ratios. And so we call this a hard market right now. And I should disclose to you, Sony, so I'm getting really involved in the insurance circles. I'm advising some insurance companies right now. So I'm really getting my feet wet into this world. So we call this a hard market where things are not going so well. There's big pullbacks. Costs are going up because they don't really know how to measure it. And so what we as MSPs need to do is figure out how can we get involved and lead the conversation to bring these loss ratios down, to protect ourselves, to protect our clients, and to ultimately do the right things, right? That's the big thing that needs to happen. And so a few things I'll leave you, and then you ask me any questions you want on this, is one is cyber insurance gets to be the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And I think MSPs have always felt like cybersecurity discussions with their clients is very adversarial. Mm-hmm. It's weren't you already doing this for me before? Well, it didn't cost this much last year. Why does it cost me this much this year? I'm not a target. Nobody cares about my data. And MSPs have to navigate those sales hurdles, which are really difficult. Mm-hmm. And now you get to say things like, hey, don't shoot the messenger. but you can't have cybersecurity insurance unless you're doing this and this and this and this.
Mm.
And we know why you need to do it, because we've been talking to you for a year about this, Miss Client, Mr. Client, but now insurance is requiring it. Don't shoot the messenger, right? And that kind of helps to be able to lean on the new bad guy. And you're the one that's coming in to rescue the day to solve it. But that also means that you as an MSP, you can't be an agent, and you can't sell cyber insurance, but you got to get involved in the discussions. You got to implement into your QBRs. Hey, can we talk cyber insurance? You guys have a policy in place? You do. Can we take a look at it? We just want to make sure, since we're the ones that are actually responsible for your IT and your security, that what you're saying you're doing, we're mapping that out. And then you need to find gaps. You need to be able to say, wow, you've got, $150,000 of coverage. Did you know a ransomware attack is going to cost you about $1 million on average once you count all the damages involved and the payments? No, I didn't know that. Yeah, we need to really, you can stay with your insurer. We don't care who you pick, but we want to help you change these limits, right? We've got to get involved and find the gaps for our clients and navigate through all of that. We've got to get to this point where I think we're naturally involved in the discussions of cybersecurity with our clients. I think that's really important. And then the last thing I'll leave you with shortly, Sunny, on cyber insurance is, so first, lean on them as the new bad guy. Second, get involved with your clients in the discussions around all this. And third, recognize that there are going to be new controls and new things that you must be doing. And I'll point out a few of those things. One is cyber insurance across the board is going to force all MSPs to have MFA rolled out everywhere, no questions asked. And if you turn it off, they want to know about it, and they want it off for like a day or two, and they want proof that it's been turned back on. So if you have to turn it off for debugging or something, they want proof that it's turned back on. Two, you're going to see EDR is the new normal. That's endpoint detection and response. There's a lot of EDR companies that are out there that I won't talk about today because it doesn't matter, but EDR is now becoming the new normal. Antivirus is not enough. So that's a big, big piece for it. And then three, the third big thing I'm seeing come across the board is continuous vulnerability management. They want to be able to see and know, are you patching for things? Do you have good security hygiene? When the next big, like for those of you that are technical, saw like the big Log4j stuff that came out a few months ago, when something like that happens, they want to know, I want to know every client on every endpoint that is susceptible to this. And I want to see when you fix it in X amount of time, otherwise you're not getting policy coverage. That's the future that's coming. I actually don't think that's a bad thing. Those are good security things that make it easier for you as an MSP to say, we're going to build towards that. We're going to monetize that and get revenue out of it. And we're going to protect our clients and reduce loss ratios. This is a win for everybody. So that's why I think that's where I know insurance is going. And I think it's actually huge benefits for us.